I'm just going to build this. I'm going to start on zero. We're going to see where it goes. So I spent the next 5-6 months researching, doing a whole bunch of shit, building, and then I launched September 2020, and it just kind of, it translated faster than I thought it was going to being able to be a guest podcast like I wanted it to be. I thought I was going to have to do like 30 solo episodes before someone really wanted to come in. Yeah. But to my surprise, I did get one person to come in on my initial like 10 that I dropped day one. And then I had a few really cool people hit me up like, yo, I would totally do this. I was like, all right, let's see how long this can last like that. And then it never stopped. The only time I did a solo was when I had COVID, like a year later. Yeah.
What did you do on a solo podcast? You're one of those guys that's good at just talking?
Bro,
I can tell. You can just sit there and have a conversation and just rant, right?
Yes, it's funny if you get to a moment where there's a nice rant, which I might have had like one or two of those. I don't even know how many of those I had. But I don't like it because I like bouncing ideas out there or having someone bounce them at me, whatever it is, and then hear the other perspective. Sometimes someone goes, 100%, agree. Other times people go, that's the dumbest fucking shit I've ever heard in my life. When you're in there, it's just the cameras and you're talking to the wall. Yeah. So, like, I understand some people like that content, and I guess they like some of the solo episodes, but I just think it's so much better when you're talking with somebody.
Right.
So it was like...
There's a lot of guys that are really good at doing the solo shit, though.
There are, like, you ever see Tim Dillon do it?
Bro, I watch every single one of his episodes.
It's incredible.
He's so fucking funny.
You know how hard that is to do?
I can't even imagine.
Like he does
I can't even imagine.
Now, he does have Ben in there, which helps.
He laughs at everything, and that makes it so much better.
He can... People, I think, unless you've done it, don't realize that even having just the producer in there who can fill, like, a gap of 2 seconds of silence with a laugh is huge. Because when you are just in there alone talking, it's not like in a conversation where sometimes someone can have a dramatic pause and it's cool. It's like, oh shit, I haven't talked for 2.5 seconds. I got to say something. And you're like, you don't want to over edit it. Right. So when I was really strict with myself, I'm like, no cuts of this. Like, the only thing is, if God forbid I pause for 5 seconds, I'll cut to the second camera and we'll make it 2. But I didn't want to do that. And so that was like, it was stressful, and also there was extensive research that would go into each of those because they'd be on a very specific topic, be a lot of work on that, and it's not as fun. Right. So, you know, I'm glad I did it because it made me have to be good at that, and it's pretty hard to do, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I like getting to the guest model, which is also why I liked your podcast right away, because in my opinion, there are not enough podcasts who are doing long form conversations that are not in niche, right? Like you have all different types of people on here.
Right.
All different types of people. There needs to be way more of that. I could never figure out like why they're, you know, you have, like, obviously Joe Rogan's the #1 podcast in the world. That's what he does from his own angle. Guy like Lex Friedman does that very well, one of Joe's guys. There's some others, like I guess Dax Shepard for a while. I haven't seen it in a while, but he was doing that, and it was longer form. But there's not nearly as many as you would think, and there's a big demand for it. So.
Yeah, most of the most successful ones are in a niche, right? I think that's the best way to, like, gain traction or to gain, like, a big following, because there's so many fucking podcasts. It's just easier for them to all be categorized into their own niche. So you can watch this podcast for that, that podcast for that. Otherwise, it's just kind of like you're just gaining people, no one's sticking, right? So if no one's interested in you, they're just going to come to you for the one guest you had. And the next guest could be, you could have a fucking guy who sells cotton candy one day and an FBI agent the other day. No one's going to come back for the next episode.
Yeah. It does make it a harder road. Mm-hmm. So, like, I look at you did it a really outside the box way, unplanned too, which is cool. You're a great filmmaker. You built a channel with kick-ass documentaries, so you built an audience of people who are like, yo, this guy's fire. And then you launched a podcast, and as you told me, there were certainly people who were like, all right, well, I'm not about this, and they left.
Right.
But there are a lot of people who weren't.
Yeah.
So they were already there.
Yeah, if you stayed.
Yeah, and so you already had credibility, right? Like, that's a great way to do it. Mm-hmm. With me, if I hadn't gone to the short clip model, to like entice people, I'd be dead.
Really?
No shot. That's where 100 million% of the growth is from that.
From the TikTok stuff.
Yes.
Really?
And it's all from that too, because on YouTube
you go hard on that shit.
I try.
You take clips from movies.
Yeah.
You add music.
It was, look, man, how many podcasts are there? Like 4 million now?
At
Something like
least 4 billion.
right?
Yeah.
Active, let's overshoot it. Let's say active, there's 2.5 million in this country.
Right.
Just alone.
That do podcasts like an episode a week, right?
Right. Something like that. At least one.
There's obviously some people who do like one every month.
Sure. But I'm saying, like, let's call active podcast once a week,
Right.
to use what you just said, or more. That means that this is one of the dumbest possible things you could ever do as
Yeah.
a career decision.
Yeah.
Because you are trying to get attention. Before the pandemic, there was 191 million people who would listen to a podcast. It's definitely higher now. I think 60% of them were weekly listeners at the time. So that's, maybe it was like 125, 130. I'm trying to remember these numbers. So if I'm a little off, sorry. But either way, now divide that across 2.5 million. And also look at the talent out there. Look at the people making great podcasts, doing great work. Hard to take away from that. Like, are you crazy enough to walk in day one and be like, I want to take some listeners from Joe Rogan?
Yeah, right.
You're never going to do that.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be your mindset. Your mindset should be like, let me see if I can carve out someone wanting to possibly add me into their role with other people who happen to be great at this.
Right.
So, like, also asking people to check out a longer form podcast, it's an instant gratification world. They want to know what they're getting. So you're already behind the 8 ball, right? So what I eventually did is I looked across the board and I said, what is something that no one else is doing? And I couldn't figure it out, but I'm like, no one goes all out on short clips. Like, no one makes it a production like what you would do with your documentaries. No one makes it like a work of art.
Right.
Like, they all just like take clip, boop, drop it right there. They don't even
edit, they just cut. They just chop it out and post it. Right.
and they barely even chop, like, in between to not have silence and stuff.
right.
Or they'll literally, my favorite is like in a TikTok feed or a YouTube Shorts feed that's 1080 by 1920, where every video that someone's hitting is 1080 by 1920. They'll just like lift a 1080 by 1350 graphic from Instagram and like, boop. Yeah, people are gonna watch that. It like doesn't care about the viewer. So I'm like, this is crazy. And then like the few people who actually pulled this off are doing well. I'm like, I think I could do this. It took a while to like get to the point where I was like good at it, but that's just what I leaned into.
Interesting.